Next up, though, a team that is no stranger to the college football playoff. That is the Georgia Bulldogs, who had a chance to win their third national title in 4 years last year, but that really ended when Carson Beck suffered a season-ending elbow injury in the SEC title game against Texas. Now, of course, Georgia would go on to win that game, but their backup quarterback in Gunnar Stockton was not really up to the task in the college football playoff, only a 56.5 PFF grade in that quarterfinal loss to Notre Dame. But now Gunnar Stockton is the starting quarterback, so Georgia's hoping with a full offseason as the starter, he can improve and be the star quarterback that Georgia think he can be after being a top 10 quarterback coming out of high school. Carson Beck, of course, is now at Miami. We'll talk about them in the ACC preview coming out later. Bulldogs also had a really underperforming receiving core last year, but they did improve it in the transfer portal, adding a couple guys there like Zachariah Branch too. There are still some questions on the offensive line, though, with all three interior starters, who all three are great players too. All three of them are gone now to the NFL. The defense does lose some stars, Dawn, like 3 first-round picks in Michael Williams and Jalen Walker and Malachi Starks, but Kirby Smart has always had elite defenses. That should be the same next year.
I mean, if you're asking me their biggest strength, really, it's Kirby Smart.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, even as far as they got last year.
Best coach in the country, yeah.
Yeah, even as far as they got last year with the struggles in the passing game and then eventually Carson Beck's injury. And look, even competing really hard against Notre Dame in that playoff game, right? It was a tough defensive game, and they just kind of got ground away eventually with Notre Dame playing a better tough defensive game. But you look at what they have on defense. They always have great players. They've got Kirby Smart. Then you look on the field, Kristen Miller at defensive tackle, C.J. Allen at linebacker, K.J. Bolton's going to be a superstar at safety, Dalen Everett and a loaded group of corners. They're always really good on defense. It's almost like you want to say, look, they lost, what did we say, their top 6 defensive linemen in snaps played last year? Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Plus Jalen Walker. I mean, they lose all these players, but they have Kirby and they have a boatload of talent coming in. They're always going to be great on defense, and that's really the floor of where you're at with Georgia's. Why are they going to win at the bare minimum 8 or 9 games? Because they're going to have a top 10 defense.
Absolutely, yeah. Georgia is one of 4 schools in America that has a top 10 D-line, linebacker unit, and secondary. So yes, even with losing 3 first-round picks on the defense, they should still have a really good defense next year. So a defense with plenty of talent is the biggest strength. A passing game with plenty of questions is a weakness right now for Georgia. A brand new quarterback, like I mentioned before, and Gunnar Stockton, we'll talk about in just a second. 57.8 passing grade on 104 career dropbacks so far. And not really helping him is the fact that, like I said before, the entirety of that elite interior offensive line is now gone from that team. And I mentioned before, Georgia did improve the receiving core in the transfer portal, but they're banking on Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch to really become superstars for them to help out Gunnar Stockton as he transitions to the starting quarterback for Georgia. But Dalton, what did you see from Gunnar Stockton in his start against Notre Dame and overall in just all the snaps you saw from him in his career?
Well, look, he's got a good arm. I'll give him that much. We saw, especially there was one big-time throw in the playoff game against Notre Dame where you're like, okay, that guy's got some high velo, right? He's got a good arm. He loads into it. It's a little bit of a longer release. But I think what you have is a guy who, more like in the past, and we've seen them do it with Stetson Bennett, we've seen him do it with Carson Beck, a guy who's been in the system, a guy at certain points you could tell has been in the system. Look, last year went 20 of 24 on play action passes with an 83.5 passing grade. I think it's still going to be the same dynamic with Georgia's has always been. They're going to want to run the football. They're going to want to get Stockton moving in the bootleg game and play action, and then give him throws that he's comfortable with. Now, the question is going to be, can he handle the pressure of it all? He's got one career start, and that came against Notre Dame. Couldn't quite handle it there. Got a long delivery, takes him a while, needs to be a little more aware of pressure, and he's definitely not an elite athlete. So there's some things that are there to work with for sure. There's also some things that are missing that were the reasons he wasn't necessarily a 5-star guy, right? He's a kid from right down the road there in Georgia. He's playing for the hometown team. He got the one playoff start last year, but I think it's just about the lack of experience, the lack of consistency from what we saw last year, and a lack of touch, because he's got this almost, I don't want to say a pitcher's delivery, but it's a longer delivery that's meant to generate velocity. He doesn't throw with a lot of touch, so he's really got to be a bit more precise with the accuracy on his throws this year.
Definitely, and I think Georgia, with all the question marks in their passing game, they're going to rely on the run game a lot next year. And a guy they're relying on a lot is Nate Frazier, their top running back. He was the number 2 running back coming out of high school in the 2024 high school class, and a really strong true freshman year at Georgia. He led the Bulldogs with 671 rushing yards and had an 84.2 rushing grade as a true freshman, which was 8th among all players in the SEC. So I really think now that Trevor Etienne is gone to the NFL, I think Nate Frazier could have a really, really good year as a sophomore. Like I said before, had a lot of potential out of high school, and he showed why in his true freshman year.
I absolutely agree. I thought especially he came in right away in week 1 last year and played a great game against Clemson. He doesn't have blazing 4.3 speed necessarily, but his vision is terrific, and he gets north and south quick. I think he's going to be a core piece of this offense, especially, again, when you talk about a team, I think early in the year, especially trying to protect its quarterback, Nate Frazier is going to play a huge part in this offense on the ground.
Definitely. But Dalton, another guy who's a true sophomore who we're even higher on, who we think, yes, they lost a superstar safety in Malachi Starks, but they got another one in KJ Bolden.
I think this Georgia team this year is built through their secondary. Last year it was a 3-layer defense, and their D-line was spectacular in run defense, but we got to talk about the true sophomore KJ Bolden at safety. I mean, you talk about you're losing Malachi Starks, and it feels like it doesn't even matter because you've got such a similar player in Bolden as a true freshman, a great tackler, a really good run defender. He was where he needed to be in coverage at all times. I really think he's a very similar player to Malachi Starks and another 2027 draftee that we're going to be talking about as a potential first-round pick. But he becomes the centerpiece now of this defense, right? You've got a really good group of corners. You're losing Starks, but I think Bolden this year is the glue that holds it together on the back end. So he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. An 82 PFF grade as a true freshman is outstanding in the SEC. We've seen this lately. Malachi Starks, even Caleb Downs when he was at Alabama. Freshman safeties coming in better than ever, and KJ Bolden's another one.
Yeah, 13 coverage stops, tied for 5th among all safeties in the nation as a true freshman last year. It's so crazy comparing him to Malachi Starks on because both of them were the number 1 safety coming out of high school, and you saw why immediately in their true freshman years. Malachi Starks had a great freshman year at Georgia. They won the national title that year. KJ Bolden had a great freshman year at Georgia as well. I think he could be a first-round pick in the 2027 draft when that comes around very soon. So he's been fantastic. Bottom line time now, Dalton. Will Georgia make the college football playoff, and will they go above their win total, which is set at 9.5 by FanDuel right now? Or with a brand new quarterback in Gunnar Stockton, will they kind of disappoint next year?
I've been in between on this. And then I kind of keep going back to it's still Kirby Smart, and I feel like my first instinct tells me they might get back to the same spot they were in last year. The quarters. Yeah, they were in the quarters last year. They might get to the same spot as last year, or maybe even bow out in the first round, because I am worried about this passing game. And the receivers are what they are, and if they can get Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch and a good group of tight ends too, right? You still have Oscar Delp, you still have Lawson Lucky, right? So I think you have a lot of talent on the outside. It's the offensive line, it's the quarterback. And when you have those two things as your big questions, I want to say no. I look at their schedule, and I think there's only 2 games against Alabama and Texas where I don't think Georgia's a pretty clean favorite. I'm going to take the over. I'm going to say right now, if I had to make a prediction right this minute, I'm going to tell you 10-2 and in the playoff. But I'm not. I actually don't think right now I could say they're the best team in the SEC with their quarterback and their offensive line situation. I'm a little worried about that, but I'm going to take a soft over at 10-2.
Yeah,
I'm with you. I almost did it, but I just
they do host the 2 hardest games. They are hosting Alabama and hosting Texas.
They're hosting both, and then you have at Tennessee. We'll get to at Auburn. The Gator game is always fun, but Lagway has to prove he could. Well, Lagway almost beat him last year if he didn't get hurt. I mean, that might have been a thing too. But there's some tough games, but there's also 6 or 7 here that I go, yeah, they're not losing. Kirby just won't let them lose those games. So then you start narrowing it down. It's still Kirby. It's still Georgia. Yeah. And I don't right this minute think I'm going to pick them to win the conference, but I think 10 wins is usually a safe bet with them.
Okay.
They find a way to do it, basically.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go under. I'm worried about that offense next year. Listen, I think Carson Beck, going from him to Gunnar Stockton could be a pretty big downgrade, in my opinion. I'm still a big Carson Beck guy. I'm going to go the soft under. I absolutely consider them going 10-2, considering how often they do win 10 games under Kirby Smart. But you got Bama, you got Texas, you got Florida, you got Auburn, you got Ole Miss in that schedule too. Tennessee too. It's tough. I'm gonna go under just because I am very worried about the passing game.
There's a very real scenario for both.
And the offensive line, I'm a little worried about.
I would be worried about it because the tackles were already struggling last year.
Yeah, and now the entire interior offensive line,
and they were all really good.
Yeah,
I get it. Like there is a scenario for both, and I say the same thing on the NFL show. If either of your questions are O-line or quarterback, you have an issue, and they may have two issues. The difference is, they have Kirby, they have the defense. They're going to be in every game. They're going to find a way to win games their way with, Nate Frazier in the running game and still finding a way. But it's going to be tough this year. It's going to be tough. And I think the big thing, we're just going to have to see early in the season if Stockton can survive, if the offensive line can survive in its own right, and then if Stockton can survive behind it. There's a lot of questions, I think, this year with Georgia on offense.
And to give Stockton credit, I will say, yes, I wasn't impressed by what I saw from him, but he was put in a really impossible situation. Your first career start is against Notre Dame in the college football playoff quarterfinal. Within full offseason as a starter, he could be a lot better.
And the second half of the Texas game. We're judging Stockton on a small sample against the two best secondaries in the country.
Yes, yeah.
That is tough.
That is fair.
I think to give him a chance, especially early in the season, to get his footing. But you mentioned it. It's the offensive line, too. It's not just – if I had a top 5 offensive line, I'd go –
and you're hoping Zachariah Branch is who we thought he could be coming out of high school.
Exactly. So there's a lot of variable, but their defense and Kirby Smart is the constant.
Yes, right.
I'll take kind of the softer 10-2 approach to that one. I'll take the over.
I'll take the soft under on that approach, too. So I'm going under for Georgia. I think probably 9-3 is probably what I'll say for them next year.